Hi, and welcome to KXAN Plus. I'm your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and we are coming to you from the historic Paramount Theater in Austin, Texas. Today's show is all about the Hi, How Are You project, the 8th annual Hi, How Are You Day. And with me to celebrate this and learn more about this project is the project's co-founder, Tom Gimbel. Tom, hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you? What a great way to start.
The Hi, How Are You Day event celebrates the legacy of Daniel Johnston and raises awareness for mental health. This year's celebrations will be happening on Thursday, January 22nd and Friday, January 23rd. This is the 8th annual Hi, How Are You Day celebrated right here in the Paramount Theater. So let's talk about this year's performance. Who was chosen, how were they chosen, and who's going to take that stage?
So we've got Nathaniel Rateliff and Lamont Landers are going to be performing, and since I get to book it, I just pick my favorite artists, and Lamont and Nathaniel are two of my all-time favorites. Nathaniel has performed at Madison Square Garden,
Wow.
Austin City Limits Music Festival, all over the country, all over the world, and he's going to be in this incredible intimate theater here in Austin. And Lamont is an up-and-comer. He's on MCA Nashville. Unbelievable voice. I can't wait to hear him in this place.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him bless us all on that stage here in this theater.
We're all going to be privileged to see these two guys in this room for sure.
So Tom, I really want to get into what Hi, How Are You Days is and the Hi, How Are You project, how it started, and your relationship to Daniel Johnston. So how did this all start?
Well, I started managing Daniel Johnston in 1992. I was just right out of University of Texas, and he was my first management client, and it grew obviously far beyond just a management client. It's somebody who becomes a friend, almost a family member, you know, and I still work with the Johnston estate to this day, and his brother Dick, and everybody associated with Daniel is still, you know, very close to my heart. So it's rare in this world where you get to work with a true genius. I've been in the music business for 35 years, and Daniel Johnston is an absolute genius if you've heard his songs, if you've seen his art. So that's been a real honor. And in 2018, we wanted to do something to give back to the community, so we started just a one-day concert. We thought, Hi, How Are You Day? And we hosted that concert at the Mohawk, and had a bunch of local musicians come out, and it was actually the last time that Daniel Johnston performed. So it was a very, very special concert, and we've been running the Hi, How Are You project ever since.
How do you think that he would react to knowing that it's been 8 years since that first one and the legacy is continuing?
Well, Daniel passed away in 2019, and so we miss him, but his music and his art lives on, obviously, and I think he would be really happy with what Hi, How Are You Day is, and what his legacy means to the city of Austin and to people around the world who celebrate Hi, How Are You Day on January 22nd. You know, Daniel always wanted to be famous, and if you look at his in the documentary and things like that, when he wanted to be on MTV so badly, he wanted to be famous, and to know that his name is out there in such a large way, but also with such a positive association around mental well-being, I think that's a wonderful legacy for him. And you know, he's a very special artist, and people who discover his music, because he dealt with mental health issues, severe mental health issues himself, but yet created this music that was so beautiful and uplifting, and art that is so beautiful and uplifting. I think it shows that no matter what you're going through, that you can find a ray of sunshine, that you can find some hope. And I think that's a big part of Daniel's legacy. And
for any of our viewers who maybe don't know of Daniel's music or haven't heard of it before, what type of music did he create and what was the message behind it?
So a lot of people consider Daniel Johnston kind of the godfather of alternative music. It's lo-fi bedroom pop. Kurt Cobain was a huge fan and wore Daniel's t-shirt, which is how Daniel first became famous. But so many other artists have covered Daniel's music, from Beck, Wilco, Cage the Elephant, TV on the Radio, Flaming Lips, on and on. David Bowie was a huge fan, David Byrne's a fan. Like he's just a very special musician, and truly a genius songwriter.
And that little frog that you have on your jacket, where did that come from?
So the Hi, How Are You original frog was an album called Hi, How Are You that was released in 1983. And the story is Daniel was working at a carnival. He's from West Virginia. He came to live with his brother in Katy, Texas, and then that's when he started having mental health issues, which a lot of people do around that age, 20, 21, 22. If you're going to have schizophrenia, that's largely when it will manifest. And so he ran away, and he's working for a carnival, and it was like a carnival toy that someone had thrown in the trash, like a plastic frog that said "Hi, how are you" on it. And that's where it came from. So yeah, I mean, so much art, a song or a visual piece of art is typically something innocuous that just somebody finds, or they're and in Daniel's case, everything that he came across he would turn into art. If you look through his art book, the number of pictures of his dad and his mom, teachers, people that he knew. If you look at his songs, his unrequited love that he never had was this girl named Lori Allen from West Virginia, and she was the undertaker's daughter. So many of his songs are about Lori or about the undertaker. There's a song called Funeral Home, which is about the funeral home where Lori Allen's dad worked. Like, he took what was in his world and turned it into art, which is what most musicians do.
It seems like he was inspired by the little things that we all look past.
Absolutely, yeah. He has a song called Queenie the Doggy, which was about their dog. And I went to Dick Johnston's house, and I saw a picture of this collie, and I said, "Oh, is that Queenie?" And he said, secret of our families, we've had like 14 dogs, and they're all named Queenie. So there is no one Queenie the dog. But yeah, you could say that was the one that the song was written about.
Oh.
Yeah. In 1993, there was a record store near campus called Sound Exchange, and they asked Daniel to come by and paint a mural. I think they gave him a ladder and $75 and said, "Do whatever you want." And he created the famous "Hi, How Are You" mural that fortunately stands to this day. Thank you to American Campus Communities for preserving that wall, which is a freestanding wall right now. But that mural, I think, has become kind of a unofficial, friendly ambassador of Austin. And so many people who visit Austin want to visit that mural, and preserving it is obviously something that's very important to us. But yeah, it's a frog who just says, "Hi, how are you?"
And it's been replicated multiple times. I've seen it at ACL. I've seen it around town as another mural. What do you think that students who pass by, or anyone passing by that wall, what do you think comes to mind when someone sees that?
Well, obviously it's a landmark, and I think it's uniquely Austin. So I know from a tourism standpoint, when people come to Austin, they want to see that. Those of us who know the origin of it, it does remind us it's asking the question, right? "Hi, how are you?" It's a sincere outreach to ask about your well-being. And I think that's the lesson that it's teaching. So it's both a wonderful piece of art, and it's also a reminder.
So let's talk previous Hi, How Are You Day events and how they have gone. What have they looked like in the past?
Well, the very first one was at the Mohawk.
Oh, wow.
And it was on Daniel Johnston's birthday, January 22nd. And my wife and I wanted to give back to the community. We knew we wanted it to be in the space of mental health, and we knew we wanted music to be involved. So we really thought Hi, How Are You was just going to be a one-day concert celebrating Daniel Johnston. And it was actually the last time that Daniel Johnston ever performed. And after that concert, we got so many letters, and Rolling Stone picked it up, and Vice, and Spin, and literally letters from around the world. And we thought, this really has hit a chord with people. This simple idea of saying "Hi, how are you?" and really meaning it had resonated with people. And clearly Daniel Johnston has fans around the world. And when we got that response, that's when we said, hey, we really got to double down on this and make the Hi, How Are You project a real thing. And that's when we created the 501c3 and brought on the board. And that was 8 years ago. And here we are today.
And this is the 8th event, right? This happening this January 2026.
That's right.
How has it evolved? How has the planning changed and the event details all grown and gotten bigger since that first Hi, How Are You Day celebration?
Well, we went from the Mohawk with a few local acts, and in subsequent years we went to ACL Live and had acts like Cage the Elephant and the Flaming Lips and Spoon, and it got really big, and maybe too big. And I think over the last couple years we've been here at the Paramount Theater, and I think this is really the sweet spot. This is the ideal place for Hi, How Are You Day because it's a very intimate room. It's a very friendly room, and it just feels great. I've heard from many people who've attended the concert that the Hi, How Are You Day concert is the friendliest concert you'll ever attend because people will be standing in line and waiting to get in, and they'll just go, "Hi, how are you?"
Aww.
And they'll strike up a conversation. So it's very friendly, and it's a beautiful old theater here in Austin, right in the heart of downtown Austin. So we found our home.
Yeah, and it's a tradition to stop by the Paramount Theater if you ever visit Austin, and what better day than Hi, How Are You Day?
Yeah.
For this year's events, I know that it's not just happening here at the Paramount Theater. Tell us about the expansion.
Yeah, well, on January 22nd, a lot of what the Hi, How Are You project does is geared towards young people 14 to 24. So we wanted to be close to the campus, so we've got a concert going on with Caroline Hale and Witches Exist, two great local Austin artists, and that's going to be at the Ballroom on the 22nd. So you've got a concert the night of the 22nd, you can come here to the Paramount Theater on the 23rd, and then we've got a late night show on the 23rd with Lamont Landers and his band playing at the Continental Club.
Wow, so make it a whole weekend, right? Hi, How Are You
It's
weekend.
the live music capital of the world, so you should see as much music as you can.
That's awesome. And happening on the UT campus, what was the idea behind bringing it to UT this year?
Well, one of our key sponsors is American Campus Communities, which is the largest provider of student housing nationwide. And we work with 30 different student housing companies around the country, reaching 850,000 students. So we provide training for them on how to have peer-to-peer conversations and also self-care, and we promote community events. That's a big part of what Hi, How Are You does, is encouraging people to be in community, whether it's coming to a concert at the Paramount Theater, a comedy show, running as a club, whatever it might be that brings you out and together with other people, that's what we promote. So doing it near campus where American Campus Communities started just makes a lot of sense for us.
Nice. And in your own words, if you could explain why music brings people together and supports mental health, why would that be?
Well, every other year we do something called the Thriving Student Index Survey, and it's the largest survey of its kind to college students, just checking in, how are you doing? And one of the questions is, what do you do when you're having some mental health concerns yourself? And 82% of young people say they turn to music, which makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Music is just so uplifting. It affects our emotions, it affects our moods. So music has always been a really big part of what we do.
That's a perfect blend.
Absolutely.
And do you think that, looking back from that first Hi, How Are You event that was thrown by you and your team, do you think that it would have evolved into something like it is this year?
I don't know that we could have imagined what we did at the Mohawk in 2018 would evolve into what, not just what Hi, How Are You Day is, but what the Hi, How Are You project is year round. And to say that we're reaching 850,000 students with mental wellness training and countless more through social media and different engagements, that's beyond anything my wife and I could have hoped for when we did that concert 8 years ago.
And what is a message you would send to our community here in Austin and all around the world about this special day and what it will look like in 2026?
Well, first of all, we encourage people to check in on one another. That's really at the core of what the day is about. Have a Hi, How Are You conversation. And the key to a Hi, How Are You conversation is not just saying, Hi, how are you? And allowing someone to say, I'm fine, I'm good. It's going a second level. How are you really? And get into a sincere conversation. So those check-ins are so important, whether with a friend, a family member, a coworker, whoever it might be. Just check in on one another and see how people are doing. And then in terms of the concert itself, we obviously encourage people to come out and enjoy a great night of music with Nathaniel Rateliff, Lamont Landers. There's going to be a show here at the Paramount Theater, and then a late night show at the Continental Club with Donovan Keith opening for Lamont Landers and his full band, which is going to go into the wee hours, and I guarantee it's going to be a party. Just, you know, again, live music is enjoyment. It's also therapy, you know, because we are in community. We're together with other people. We're not sitting alone behind a screen, which too many people do these days, and that's why we're seeing the increased instances of mental health concerns. You know, we are meant to be together as people, and concerts are a wonderful way to bring people together.
Tom, thanks so much for joining us here on KXAN Plus and sharing more on this amazing journey that you have been on with your team. For anyone that is interested in learning more information on this event, where can they learn that?
You can go to hihowareyou.org and get information on the concert and what we do year round. So hihowareyou.org, easy to remember.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. And
my pleasure.
It sounds like the event's going to be a lot of fun this year.
You got to come on down. It's going to be amazing.